And it's ironic that every time Trump is mentioned, anytime we talk about tariffs, that actually gives a boost to the Liberals and Mark Carney. So they as much as they are very serious about this and are concerned about it, at the same time you can sort of see a little pep in their step whenever Trump is mentioned.
So in yesterday's video, I mentioned that there was a CBC clip that kind of manipulated a story surrounding Mark Carney. Now, unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to play it, but as I was working on this video to show you guys what I found, the CBC was working extra hard to give the Liberals another leg up just before the debates, and we'll get to that in a second. But the clip I was talking about came from this video titled 3 Sneaky Ways You Could Be Influenced This Election. Now, out of these 3 methods, I want to mainly focus on method 2 and a little bit of method 3. But method 1 is essentially, say you're on Facebook and you own a group, has about 20 or so thousand people in it, and it was a group about Canadians who own cats. Somebody can then buy that group from you, and they can decide to change the title of it. And now it says something like Canadians who support the 51st state. Now it looks like there's a bit of a movement behind this concept, because there's a group with 20,000 people who didn't actually join this group. They joined another group, but this is how the influence changes. Now, the second method, which is what I wanted to focus on, I'm not really going to get too much into it because I want you to see the clip for itself, but it's about manipulated photos or AI generated photos. So take a look at this.
Among them, Jennifer Irish. With 35 years of national security experience, she's now with the University of Ottawa's Information Integrity Lab.
Do you get fooled?
Yes, I do. I guess I shouldn't be saying that in this forum, but it is getting more and more difficult. And we have specialists who are looking especially at visual disinformation. Sometimes it takes the application of quite sophisticated tools to see whether something's manipulated or not.
This fake image of Liberal leader Mark Carney didn't require high-tech tools and was quickly debunked, but not before it had an impact.
We know this is fake, but there was actually a heckler who brought this up.
This has happened before, that hecklers have brought in fake news into sort of the real world, but what we're seeing is a different sort of scale. And also, this is more convincing. In the past it would have just been text and a rumor or a doctored image. Now you can generate for cents, these sorts of images.
And it looks like this could be real.
And it looks like it could be real. And this technology is only getting better, so it's only going to get more convincing.
So he's saying that there's fake news being brought into the real world when there are actual photos of these two individuals together, multiple of them. There's a lot of connections, especially with his wife being in Epstein's logbook, her sister being very close friends with Ghislaine. There are a lot of ties between those two individuals. And yes, that photo that they were showing was fake, with him and Tom Hanks on the beach and all that stuff. But this is the first time they're kind of talking about it or bringing it up. And this is how they choose to paint it, that this is a fake story. There's no real connection. It's a manipulation. And we're starting to see that with individuals in the public, as Rebel News kind of covered this a few weeks back, as they've been driving around with their truck showing this connection. And just listen to the disbelief that is exposed in this video.
It's all lies.
What is lies on this?
That he was with Epstein and Maxwell.
But you have a picture of them together.
That's not even him. It doesn't even look like him.
It's him. You don't find that on the picture?
I'm sorry. I used to be a journalist and I'm not buying it.
It's not him. You're saying to me it doesn't like him at all.
No, the face is shorter, the chin is longer. No.
So what do you think it is, that picture?
Some other guy. It's just some other guy.
No, and because Mark Carney have actually said that he's him, and this is his wife, and
they used to live down the street from me, okay? I know them well. That's BS. It's all BS. Somebody makes it up, and then they put it on the side of a truck, and people will believe it the same way they believe
it's a real
Trump.
Picture. It's a real picture.
Who says?
Because nobody's talking about it.
Because there's nothing to talk about.
So it's clear that people are not doing their research when it comes to Mark Carney, let alone even believing facts that are presented to them, because most of these people, I'm sure, watch the CBC. And with the CBC doubled down on this whole fake news narrative, no wonder people are not believing it. This is the first time they're actually talking about Mark Carney and Ghislaine or showing any sort of connection, and this is how they choose to present it. Now, another interesting thing is what I was talking about with Method 3, which is about bot attacks.
Another form of disinformation Bridgman has on his radar this campaign, a potential bot attack.
This was a great example where...
He points to one last summer that served as a wake-up call.
In Kirkland Lake, this is a small Ontario town, Pierre Poilievre held a rally, and a few days later, there was thousands of messages on X talking about how that rally was great.
Like this Barry, for example, is saying, as a northern girl, it's refreshing to see a leader who actually listens. And, this person's saying that, the rural issues won me over. But essentially, they're all positive towards this very rally.
Now, in my opinion, if you're trying to put out a video talking about influencing an election, I don't think a bot attack that happened last summer for the Conservatives is the way to go. I probably would have picked the more recent news that we just got about the WeChat situation where Chinese foreign actors were promoting Mark Carney on their platform. That seems like that would be more relevant to influencing of an election. But when you look at the news coverage that happened last night on CBC, they were just painting the Conservatives in the worst light and painting the Liberals, or helping the Liberals, the best way they could by talking about Trump, tariffs, and they even had a reporter go to the White House and ask the press secretary about this to kind of put it back in the ether so that the CBC can come back and report over and over again about this interaction. Take a look.
Because we're going to talk about a moment during the White House briefings today that we think is probably going to bring Trump's annexation threats back to the top of Canadians' minds.
Yeah, all thanks to you guys. Nobody was thinking about that because it hasn't been talked about in the media for a while now. But again, I digress. Let's continue.
Yesterday, the CBC's Katie Simpson, you know her, she said on the show that she was seeking more clarity from the U.S. administration on potential changes to its auto tariffs. And today, she put her question right to the White House press secretary, plus an additional question about Trump's rhetoric on Canada. And as she does almost every day these days, Katie Simpson joins us now from Washington with some answers. All right, Katie, you were able to ask the press secretary a question.
I happened to get a couple of questions in. The first question I wanted to ask about was tariffs, because, of course, the Canadian economy relies so heavily on trade with the United States. And so I asked about that first. And then sort of a question that has sort of been nagging at Canadians. Some Canadians think, why would I ask a question about annexation when Donald Trump hasn't talked about it? But that's exactly what I wanted to know, is why hasn't he talked about it? Has something changed?
Now, before we take a look at her question and then the response that she got, they even openly admit that people are questioning why she even bothered to ask this. Nobody's really thinking about this. Nobody's that I know is talking about it. Yet the only real reason you could see them doing it is because it benefits the Liberals.
Yesterday, in the Oval Office, President Trump suggested that there could be some help for automakers. I'm wondering what that looks like. Is it tariff relief on the 25% tariffs that are in place right now, or the new tariffs that are coming up in May on auto parts? And a second on Canada, if I may. President Trump's tone when it comes to Canada-U.S. relations, Canadians have noticed it's shifted a bit in the past few weeks. Ever since the election campaign started, he stopped talking about Canada becoming the 51st state, at least publicly. I'm wondering if that's on purpose and why.
I would reject the president's position on Canada has shifted. Perhaps he just hasn't been asked about Canada by questions from this group in the Oval Office, but they see him almost every day. But the president still maintains his position on Canada. The United States has been subsidizing Canada's national defense, and he believes that Canadians would benefit greatly from becoming the 51st state of the United States of America. As for autos and auto parts, I don't have anything to read out for you there, but I think the point the president was making is flexibility, and he has flexibility when it comes to negotiations and talks, but ultimately his goal in his fair trade deals that he is pursuing with many countries around the world is to put the American worker first. And we had automakers and auto workers here at the White House on Liberation Day who believe in this president and his negotiating ability to put them first and to bring those jobs back to the United States of America. And the president's been very clear about that in his conversations with the automakers as well.
And then when it comes to, what Donald Trump has said many times in the past, he sort of eased off on that rhetoric. And I wanted to know why. Is it on purpose? Has he changed his mind? Was he irked by Justin Trudeau and only said it to get under Justin Trudeau's skin? Or is there something different going on here? So that's why I wanted to know why. Anyway, so that she says that his position is not changed in this moment.
Okay, that's going to be a thunderbolt into this campaign, Katie.
So Katie's trying to play it off as she just really wanted to know. She was just so curious. But then you hear David Cochrane's response and how this is going to be a thunderbolt in the campaign, because they all know the ramifications of proposing these questions to Trump or even bringing this up. The Liberals are going to see a surge in whatever polling or they're going to be doing just before the debates happen, as the Conservatives are starting to see some positive momentum in those polls. And David Cochrane takes it a step further because he asks the Conservative on the panel about this while laughing and saying, oh, the Conservatives, they hate to see this.
What do you think, Kate? I mean, I don't know if this is what the Conservatives wanted to hear today from the White House, right? They're trying to focus it back on the issues that they want to campaign on, and this happens.
But
Now, if all that wasn't enough to have the Liberals see some sort of surge in the polls or some surge in support, don't you worry. They also were running a story about 6 Conservative MPs who had investments in Brookfield Asset Management. And the main one they were trying to hammer in was Melissa Lantsman, her investment in a Bermuda tax haven. Now, the Liberal on the panel was trying to tie Pierre Poilievre to this as well, but David Cochrane did correct her, saying no, he just has like a general asset that has some sort of tie to Brookfield because it is one of the largest Canadian platforms there. But this is the sort of thing that they are doing. We just had that letter come out that they were addressing to Mark Carney, talking about 9 Liberal MPs. I have still yet to hear the mainstream media cover this at all, just crickets. But take a listen to this.
CBC News has confirmed reports that were first in other media that show that some Conservative MPs have personal investments in Brookfield-related companies. Brookfield Assets Management is, of course, the company that Liberal leader Mark Carney previously chaired, a role Conservatives have repeatedly attacked Carney over. Well, it turns out 6 Conservative MPs have disclosed that they hold stock in Brookfield or its subsidiaries, and that includes Melissa Lantsman, who as of 2024 held stocks in one of Brookfield's investment funds based in Bermuda. Lantsman, who is the deputy leader, has accused Carney and Brookfield of dodging taxes using those types of funds. So let's pick up there. Kate, I'm going to come to you first. So I'm sure you expected that. There's a tweet Melissa Lantsman put out on March 26th where she said, Mark Carney dodged Canadian taxes using offshore tax havens while running Brookfield. Her own disclosures has her and her spouse investing in these very funds. Square this for me, if you can.
Yeah. Listen, I think there is a big difference between holding investments and being the chair of the company at the time making use of these tax havens. That's not an apples to apples comparison, in my view. But I would say that it does highlight the importance of financial disclosure of elected officials. I would be a fan of more transparency there. Pardon me, and Conservatives have called for that. And for me, this really underscores why Mr. Carney is not releasing his financial disclosures. If we're going to ask that of members of Parliament, and I think we should, if we're going to ask that of members of Parliament, should it not be incumbent on the potential Prime Minister of Canada to do the same, somebody who has had a far greater role in Brookfield's management than somebody who owns stock in the company?
But if it's unethical for Brookfield to set up these funds, which has been the Conservative argument, why is it ethical for the Conservative deputy leader and other members of caucus to invest in them?
Yeah, it's a fair point. I think that everybody needs to take a pretty good look at their finances and see exactly what is used in terms of, the practices and, the practices of these investment funds, a lot of whom make use of these, but I think it is unethical. And so if you are an elected member of Parliament, you should make sure that your investments and your stocks are with organizations that are paying their fair share of tax in Canada. Again, I think this is not an apples to apples thing. Somebody who holds stock is not the same as the man who was responsible for moving the headquarters south of the border or playing a very key role in the investment systems of these companies and the investment setup. So I think that there's not an apples to apples comparison, but more transparency is good. And I think that the point really should be, where's that transparency from Mr. Carney?
Well, if I can just go back. Those are allegations that you're suggesting in terms of the taxes. So let's just be clear on that. There's no suggestion that everybody isn't paying their fair share of taxes. And I suspect that Melissa Landsman is actually paying her fair share of taxes on her investments for Brookfield.
So just to be clear, I'm saying that the company is responsible for is making use of tax havens.
They are making use of the taxes that Melissa Landsman and Pierre Poilievre, I believe, too.
Well, no, Pierre Poilievre is in a group like a
he trusts Brookfield.
Vanguard fund.
He trusts Brookfield with other parts of it.
No, but he bought a fund. He bought units in a fund that broadly holds a bunch of Canadian companies, of which Brookfield is a part.
Okay.
But these are direct share purchases that Landsman and Scott Reed and Scott Davidson and others have made.
Exactly. Okay, fair enough. But more to the point, it seems that all of these MPs, including the leadership of the Conservative Party, actually trust the company that Mark Carney was the chair of to manage their money.
Now, to me, that is just such a disingenuous argument, the way that she said that, because as David Cochrane explained later on, he reiterates that you can't invest or buy into a Canadian fund without buying into Brookfield because of how large it is in our Canadian economy.
It's more than a few of them, and Mr. Poilievre, when he brought his investments back to a Canadian fund. I mean, you can't buy into a Canadian fund without buying into Brookfield. It's that big of a company in the Canadian economy.
Now, I would be curious as to when these funds or investments were acquired, if Mark Carney was already working at Brookfield, if they had been acquired before he was there. I know with Melissa Landsman, they said it was in 2024, so he was definitely there with this Bermuda investment. But yeah, with all that being said, what do you guys think about this whole situation? Are you a little bit more icked out by the CBC and what they're trying to do for the Liberals? Do you think it's going to have a big shift in the polls, especially before the debates? Let me know in the comment section below what you think about all this. And as always, I will catch you guys on the next one. Thanks so much.